Good morning, everybody, and welcome at this press conference on the state of play in EU-US trade relations with Mr. Bernd Lange, who is the chair of the International Trade Committee. He will give a statement first, after which you will be able to ask questions in the room as well as via Interaxio. There is interpretation foreseen in German, English and French. Mr. Lange, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot and good morning to everybody. Thanks for joining this press conference at a quite specific day. I would name it the Day of Confidence, Confidence Day, because we have our International Trade Committee meeting on the US-EU deal today, and today also some two new proposals for trade agreements are public and in the ratification process. So I guess we have really clear confidence that trade policy is now based on democratic decision. And that's really crucial. And regarding the EU-US deal, there are some doubts about the process and on the content. And therefore, I invited my colleagues today for an extraordinary inter-meeting, which will happen at 2:30. On the process, normally, as you know, we have a discussion about a mandate for negotiation with a clear democratic process, also regarding some red lines and some possibilities in normal negotiation. As the Director General of the Commission mentioned quite recently, these were not normal negotiations. Nevertheless, I expect, as chair of the International Trade Committee, that a minimum of democratic participation and control has to be guaranteed. So, therefore, also this extraordinary meeting today. And, of course, myself, but also a lot of colleagues of mine, have some doubts about the deal. First, the Commission President always argued that the deal is not the best deal, but it would give security and predictability. And looking back to this month of August, I can say there is no security and predictability. We saw on the 15th of August, 2 weeks after the so-called deal, that the United States extended the products falling under the unjustified tariffs on steel and aluminium in a volume of 407 products. So windmills, motorcycles, pumps, and a lot of other products are not covered anymore by the 15% basic tariffs. They are covered now by the steel and aluminium tariffs for maximum 50%. And pumps, you know, are more or less built by steel, and they are really now covered with 50%. So there is really an increase 2 weeks after the deal. And last week on Monday, perhaps you heard about this Truth Social, the communication agency of the US government made a post where the president made a clear statement that countries which are digital tax have enforced digital market regulation and digital service regulation should expect, if they are not changing legislation immediately, should expect a lot of tariffs and export limitation for semiconductors. So there is no security and predictability, and therefore, of course, a lot of questions will be raised to the Commission. Secondly, regarding the legislative proposal which now is on the table for reducing tariffs for US industrial goods to zero, and also quotas tariff-free for zero on agriculture products. a lot of questions are there. And I guess we will table some amendments. So why we should give zero tariff for US motorbikes, knowing that now European producers have to pay not only the 15%, but also the steel and aluminum tariffs, so up to 30%, I guess. I think we will look quite carefully to the 407 products and also some products before which are covered under the steel and aluminum and copper tariffs. So there has to be a clear link, and this, I guess, should be amended to the legislative proposal as well. Secondly, nobody knows who has really set the quotas for the agriculture products. Is it created by the European Commission? Is it created by the USTR? Nobody is knowing this. So why 500,000 tons of nuts and 3,000 tons of bison beef? So we have to, and there's no impact assessment. So we have to look really quite clearly how these figures appeared and what impact this will have on the agriculture sector in Europe. You know, on the two other agreements which are now in the ratification process, specifically on Mercosur. Everybody is really sensitive about agriculture products and the quotas. And here, from the sky, these figures appeared. And thirdly, besides some other doubts, of course, this whole tariff reduction is only valid for US products. And this is a clear undermining of WTO rules. As you know, we have the MFN clause, so if we are reducing tariffs, it is valid for all other 165 countries. And especially to the countries in the global south, I can't explain why we should give really zero tariff-free quotas for some agricultural products and not giving this to global south countries and some other elements as well. So the question of WTO compatibility is also an important issue, specifically that the European Union was always a defender of the multilateral trade order, and I guess we lost also a lot of credibility because of that. So there should be also some amendments, or I guess there will come some amendments making this approach more WTO compatibility. So limit this legislation, also link it to the reduction of tariffs in the United States and some other elements as well. So you see, there is a lot of necessity to discuss the legislative proposal, and we will do it in a really democratic way so that at the end of the day, all the citizens in Europe can be confident that we are using the day of confidence also in their interest. And to confidence is also belonging now the ratification process of two important pieces of legislation regarding trade agreements with Mercosur and Mexico. In this geopolitical field, I guess it's so important to stable our relation with a reliable partner. And after more than 23 years of negotiation, it's really now time to finalize the agreement with the Mercosur countries, also having in mind that the unfair treatment of the United States towards a lot of countries worldwide is going on, and specifically with 50% tariffs towards Brazil is also, I guess, relevant for giving solidarity and partnership with Brazil. We really looked quite hard to this agreement. As you know, in 2019 we adopted a resolution saying this agreement in the form of 2019 was not acceptable for the Parliament, and we gave a clear mandate to the Commission to renegotiate, primarily with the approach to have a protocol, but at the end of the day, the text was changed. For example, it's the first time ever that the obligation of the Paris Climate Agreement are an integrated part of a trade agreement. So the failure of reaching the commitments of the Paris Agreement could be lead to a partial or total withdrawal of the agreement. And this is, of course, not only directed to the country of the Mercosur community, it could also go to the European Union and the discussion about reaching the climate goals we have here as well. So I hope that we can conclude and ratify the agreement quite soon. If everything is going quite well, it will be a wonderful Christmas gift for the world, so that we can demonstrate that trade can be based on democratic structure, on participation, and on confidence. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Lange. We will take some questions from the floor first. Please state your media, your name.
Carl de Meyer for the French Daily Les Echos. So next week the Parliament convenes in Strasbourg for a plenary. Do you expect trade to be like a big part of the debates there? What do you expect from the traditional annual speech of the Commission President about the State of the Union, specifically about trade?
Today there is the Conference of Presidents of the group leaders, and I guess they will discuss the agenda for the next week. And I heard from several groups that the trade policy will be part of the agenda, and I expect that also some questions to the President of the Commission regarding the trade deal will be put on the table. So yes.
Please.
Hi, thank you. Léa Marchal for Agence Europe. On the US still, you argue that the agreement doesn't bring predictability, that it's unbalanced, and you suggest to table amendments to the first regulations proposals. Does it mean that you think the Commission should go back to the US and just say, we're not happy in the end, we want more? Because you know what the situation is with Donald Trump, and the Commission says, hold on, we are negotiating for further tariff relief, so trust the process. So when you say we're tabling amendments because we're not happy, does it mean you don't trust the Commission anymore to do this job? Thank you.
As I mentioned, there is at the moment no mandate. We have a mandate which is saying zero tariffs for zero tariffs on industrial goods. And this is not the result of the so-called deal from Trump's hotel in Scotland. And therefore, I guess the whole so-called deal is not really a deal. It's an agreement on some elements, but it's not legally binding and is not fixed. And therefore, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have here clear democratic structures. We are basing our work on the treaty, and we are really looking to the interests of the industry, the economy, and the people of Europe, and therefore it might be that we have some different views than the President of the Commission had in Scotland. And look to the whole situation, it is really unsecure, not only regarding amendments from our side, but also look to the so-called baseline tariffs from this so-called Liberation Day. It was not really based on confidence, because a lot of courts have the ruling that this is illegal, because in the Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Paragraph 8, it's totally clear that trade policy and even customs, as mentioned there, are in the competence of the Congress. And so let's see what the Supreme Court will have to say. And I assume that there will be some negotiations necessary from the US side as well. So this is an ongoing process. This is not a legally binding and a fixed normal trade agreement. It's just an agreement in a specific hotel in Scotland. By the way, for me, this agreement is not so important as perhaps Mr. Greer, the USTR in the United States, said. He published an op-ed 2 weeks after the so-called deal, where he mentioned that it is, of course, specific history that world order of trade are built in hotels. So Bretton Woods was created in a hotel, and the new order was also created in a hotel in Jamboree in Scotland. No, that's not true. We are sticking to a fair partnership and a rule-based order, and therefore negotiations are necessary.
There was a third question. Yes, please.
Yes, good morning. Koen Vels for Politico. 2 questions. One is if you have the idea to table amendments, does that mean that the S&D will actually eventually potentially support this deal? I mean, your party leader earlier has said that the S&D will firmly oppose it. So how does that work? Would you say that with a couple tweaks you could still be in favor? And secondly, what do you make of the argument that this is much broader than trade, that we should look at the defense question, at the alliance we want to keep alive with the US, and that it's not so much about pumps and motorcycles, but much more about keeping Ukraine in a fighting chance? Thank you.
Of course, this is a crucial element. So are we weak because we have no possibilities to defend ourselves and support Ukraine? That's a real question. And I guess we have to do more. And therefore I'm really supporting also the revision of the financial system of the European Union, so that we have the possibility to create more military technique here in Europe, that we have a possibility to join also procurement for this, and also being more closer in the structure of military defense. So that's really the crucial one. But of course, I'm quite sure that a more stronger approach would also lead to a different result. But this is history. Now we have the so-called deal there, and we're looking for further improvement. And then, at the end of the day, of course, we will have also some legal opinions on that, on the procedure, but also on the WTO compatibility and some other aspects, because it's totally outside the normal process. And at the end of the day, all political groups have to decide if they can adopt this or not.
We also have some questions online. Ms. Jana Dreyer first, please.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lange, thank you for this press conference. I have a question in terms of the amendments to the regulations regarding the U.S. deal. Can you tell us a little bit already what type of amendments this will be? You've been alluding to some limitations the agreement and the link to reciprocal tariffs. Do you already know or can know what is coming, and if there can be a sort of transpartisan agreement to that? Thank you.
Unfortunately, I have my crystal ball not here with me. So, Jana, let's see. First of all, this has to be transmitted to the Parliament, and then I guess it will come to Inter. And then I guess there has to be nominated a rapporteur on that, and the rapporteur will present a report, and then we are looking to the amendment. So this is a normal process, and also crystal clear, there is no speed up or anything. We are really based on our democratic structures. And then I mentioned some principles. Let's see how put it in. I guess there will be also coming some additional amendments. Jana. So let's see in 3-4 months what's on the table and how this will work.
A second one from Matt Heusch, please. And from, not anymore there, okay, from Philip then. You have the floor.
Hello, Philip Lange of Reuters here. Thank you for the briefing. I just wondered if you had, obviously you've expressed reservations about the proposals, but I just wondered if you had any sort of sense of what the timetable is likely to be. In other words, when roughly would you imagine Inter might start to be discussing it? When potentially could it go to the plenary? And also, obviously you don't like the deal, but this is a sort of like a Scylla and Charybdis kind of moment. It's a question of kind of choosing the least bad, or between potentially bad options. A deal you don't like, and the alternative, I guess, is a trade war, 30% tariffs from the United States, and obviously question marks about defence. Do you potentially see, whether it's kind of, maybe it's unpleasant, but a kind of pragmatic kind of approach being adopted by Parliament, in terms of perhaps accepting, albeit not a great deal, perhaps the better of the two bad options?
This is really a philosophic question. Of course, we had different strategies, different tactics. We had our countermeasures ready. There was this task force in the Commission with different parts. We made scenarios, and there were different options. And the President of the Commission decided in a specific way. This was not my way, but I'm not the President of the Commission. And now we have a result, and we have to deal with the result. And I really look to the content so far and what is perhaps coming, and then I try to bring the interest of industry, the people of Europe in, so that in the frame of such a deal, the best outcome will be guaranteed. And this will be done in a quite proper way, the normal legislative way, and I'm really proud that we have, specifically after the Lisbon Treaty, a clear procedure so that the people of Europe are involved in such decision. And it's a big difference to the United States, by the way. Here we are not faced with a decision by one person. We have a democratic process. And as I mentioned, it will come to the committee. I guess on this agriculture side, I'm convinced that the Agri Committee will have to say something on that, so there will be an opinion. And this will take some time. And at the moment, a timetable is not totally clear. Let's see how it is developing. And of course, the situation in the United States has also some impact about the progress. So we are ready, but we are also transparent. And I guess in some months we will have another press meeting where we can explain the amendments and the further steps.
We have Matt back, I see, online. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Matt Heusch with S&P Global. I just wanted to check on one specific part of the deal, the $750 billion commitment to purchase U.S. energy, LNG, oil, nuclear fuels over the next 3 years. Is this an area of the deal that the committee also has doubts over?
So I think that a lot of members will have doubts. For me as a chair, it's also an incredible situation, because I have no really sense how this will be organized. But we will discuss this in the committee, and also if there will be a legislative proposal, of course, then it will come to the committee. And personally, I think it's totally unrealistic. At the moment, the European Union, the energy companies are buying roundabout energy products from 100 billion a year. And in this so-called deal, we have the obligation to buy additional 750. In this written joint statement, it says in 3 years, so additional 250 billion a year. I see no possibilities to realize this, and I have also my doubts if the capacity in the United States to produce such amount of oil and LNG is given there. I heard also from some companies in the United States that they are not able to deliver this. We need a little bit more LNG, clear, because we have the legislation, by the way, also in the famous intercommittee, on the reduction of supply from Russia on oil and on gas to zero in 2028. So we need some more import, but it's not so much as we can really fulfill this 250 billion a year. And I guess, perhaps you can coordinate a little bit, and there are some legal possibilities. But at the end of the day, member states or energy company has to sign the contract, and it's also a question of price. So I have my doubts. And this is, of course, another risk. What will happen after 1 year? And we have perhaps 150 billion purchase in the United States. What will Mr. Lutnick then saying? And secondly, also regarding this 600 billion of additional investment in the United States. This is even not thinkable, because there is no possibility to coordinate or to dictate companies to invest in the United States. Perhaps you can support a little bit with subsidies or with some other normal industrial policy measures, but this is not possible, and this is, of course, really a risky situation. Huh?
We had one more question over there. Thank you. Please.
I'm Max Guerrera for Politico also. I wanted to ask about Soteo again next week. Are there specific items related to trade that you would expect the Commission President to mention? What are these?
Yeah, of course, I'm not in the team of the Commission President, no, that's for sure. But, of course, she should be aware about some critical questions which are here in the Parliament and give some answers about that. That's, I guess, clear. So let's see what happened today in the Conference of Presidents. This is the preparation for the speech next week. And I guess a lot of group leaders will ask a question in this direction.
Lisa, online, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks very much for this, Mr. Lange. I have a question. It's a follow-up really on Philip's question. It's about the mechanisms which are available to the European Parliament to amend this trade or this agreement with the US. And I suppose the bottom line is, can the European Parliament block this? And if not, what is the best you think you can do? Thank you.
Of course, the Parliament can block legislative proposal. So we did it in the past, but this is not the major task. We want to reach the best for the economy and the people in Europe. And at the moment, we have a situation that this proposal by the Commission is really bringing workplace in danger. So back to the pump industry, they are faced with almost 50% tariffs in the United States, and then we are reducing US imports to the European Union to zero. Then I know some companies, they can close the factory immediately. And therefore, the goal is to reach the best for the economic development and the people in Europe. And I would also add, for the people globally as well, I want not to discriminate countries in the global south with this deal. And therefore, I'm looking how to improve the proposal by the Commission. And then, after the discussion and after the amendments tabled, the Parliament has to decide. And then, of course, it might lead to another negotiation. But this is the normal way. So sometimes I can't really understand that this is under discussion, because what it would be that only leaders would decide about such important economic and political deals. This would be perhaps the reality 200 years ago with kings and queens and so on. This is not the reality and should not be the reality of a modern democratic society. So we will look what is the effect of this for economic and the people, and then we will have to decide.
Thank you very much. We will conclude this press conference then. Thank you, Mr. Lange, for...
It was a pleasure, as always. Have a good day.